Today I'm going to show you how to replace the rear brakes and rear rotors on your 2004 to 2008 Ford F-150. Remove the wheel and then remove the caliper bolts, 10mm. Take a pry bar or something, get under the caliper, pry it up. Sometimes you got to bend this spring clip in, like that. Get out of there, set that on top somewhere, there. Like that. Now I gotta remove the rotor. If you're not doing rotors, obviously you could skip this. It's not necessary to remove any of the caliper bracketry. Actually, it's part of the axle. You can't remove it. So these just come right off when you remove the caliper. If your rotors are stuck on with rust, take some PB Blaster and spray it around the edge of the hub and spray it inside the little spaces where the lugs come through. Each one will have a little narrow opening next to it. Spray that and then rotate it, spray it some more. Thankfully, this one is just going to pull right off. Now is a perfect time to inspect and clean up your emergency brake shoes. These look like they're in great condition, but they could use some cleaning. Spray them down with brake cleaner. And marvel at all the crap that comes off. Now let's service the caliper. I'll start by removing the front pad. So set the caliper on something like the axle, and these pads have little dowel pins that guide into these holes in the caliper. So you got to kind of pry the pad towards the caliper while simultaneously prying up like this. Same thing on the other side. There we go. Get rid of that. And with the old brake pad still in place on the piston caliper, take a C-clamp and then compress the caliper piston back in. Go. And pull the old brake pad out. Now look how close that was. Almost metal to metal. Now you just service these caliper slide pins. In order to do that, just get a right angle pick, slip the boot off, kinda sorta, and do the same thing for the inner part, or the inner boot lips onto the slide pin, and then just pull the slide pin out. So this one's pretty dry, so it badly needs grease. Take a glob of grease and shove it inside the boot. Do the same thing for the other end. Just glob it in there. Just take a little bit of grease and put it on the slide pin. Most of it's going to get wiped off when it goes past the rubber boot. But this will just make it easier to slide into the boot. Now take it, insert it. Get it past the lip. just slide it in there. It comes out on the other side. Get the other side of the lip on. Push this side through until its lip attaches. There we go. And just work it back and forth. Distribute all the grease. When these things run out of grease, they seize up and then you get your brakes locking up. Take a paper towel or a shop rag or clean up all this excess grease. You don't want any of these grease globs to find their way to the brake rotor. Be sure to clean out any grease globs that might have gotten in the middle of the slide pin. Shoot a little bit of brake cleaner, clean it up. And clean off the bolt threads too. Alright, then do the same exact thing for the other slide pin. Spray some brake cleaner on some paper towels or a shop rag. And then clean up these, they call them abutment clips. Just clean a lot of the caked on brake dust off. Doesn't have to be perfect. If you're installing brand new rotors, every rotor ships with a thin layer of oil on it to prevent rusting while it's in storage, so you have to take some brake cleaner and clean it off. Especially the inner diameter on these rear rotors where the emergency brake pads ride. Do that spray down. Soak paper towel up. Wipe it out. Hit the pad surface. Now let that dry and then make sure all the oil's gone and set the rotor on the hub. Clean off the outer pad surface. I spin a couple of lug nuts on to keep the rotor in place. Now the two brake pads are obviously distinct from each other with different mounting clips. This one pilots into the caliper piston with these tabs facing up towards the upper part of the caliper. Just take it and squeeze it in there. Go. Important to note that when the outer brake pad goes on, that this clip faces upward like that. It slides on like this. So once you've determined which is the correct brake pad, just take it, install it into the caliper. You'll notice it has these dowel pins that have to correspond to these holes in the caliper. And there's also little notches in the caliper that they have to slide into. Makes it easier. So just take it, line up those notches, slide it down until it clicks into place. Just like that. And make sure this brake hose isn't going to get kinked or twisted or anything. It should go back naturally to the way it's supposed to be, just from the rubber memory. Just make sure it's not kinked or twisted, obviously. That'd be bad for brake lines to be kinked. Alright. Now the front brake pad is notched to where it's got to grab onto the bottom of the caliper slide bracket. So once you get this slid onto the rotor, make sure these lock into place. Make sure the caliper slide pins aren't getting in your way. Slide them back if need be. That in place, you just push forward. Just like that. Now you can install your slide pin bolts. Your slide pin bolt. You have to wiggle and shake the caliper a little bit to find the threads. There you go. Start that one a couple turns, but don't tighten it until you get the bottom one started. Wiggle and shake this one until it finds its threads. Once they're both in place, and you can crank them down 10mm. And these don't have to be crazy tight. These are very thin bolts, so about a half turn past snug is all you need. So always give it a quarter plus a quarter turn, and that's all they need. Now just go through, double check everything. Everything's in place, brake line's not kinked. Alright, then proceed to put the wheel back on. Now with the engine off, pump the brake pedal until you get a firm pedal. That's going to refill the brake calipers with brake fluid from where you compress the pistons. This is a very important safety step, because if you don't do this and you just jump in and try to drive, you go to step on the pedal and you'll have no pedal. Just pump it up till you get a firm pedal, and then you should be safe to drive. If this video helped you, please consider supporting the channel by hitting the like button and subscribing. Thanks for watching.